So we're in Tel Aviv right now. It's October 29th, and I want to show you something that happened yesterday. I want to compare what happened yesterday in the markets to something that happened on January 1st, 2010. Let me share screen real quick. And I want to show you a game. Well, let's just see it together. So what's interesting about this game is you see how it's 108 to 106 to the Lakers over the Kings. What's interesting about this particular game is this player here is called Beno Udrich, and he played for Maccabi Tel Aviv. This guy, Jordan Farmer, who won championships with Kobe Bryant, played for Maccabi Tel Aviv. And there's another player on the roster for the Sacramento Kings, Omri Caspi, who is the only Israeli player to ever get drafted to the NBA and actually play afterwards in the NBA. So Beno scores the ball here, and right after that they lead 108 to 106, and then a Laker player gets a chance to take the lead up 109 to 108, and it goes in and out, and then they go out of bounds, and smartly the Sacramento's player bounces it off Paul Gasol's leg, and then it's 108 to 106. We only have a few seconds to go. Now, the Lakers did not foul enough in the fourth quarter to send the Kings to the line. So they have to foul quickly in order to get to the penalty, and then they can get them to where they go to the line, which is what they want to do, obviously. So here's with 36 seconds. So 7.3 to go. Omri Caspi, an Israeli, he takes it out of bounds. He immediately fouls Beno Udrich, and there's 6.6 seconds to go, and they're still not in the penalty. Now they are. So the next time that they get the ball inbounds, they will go to the line. So here's what I want to show you. First of all, this is Lakers coach Phil Jackson. He won 6 championships with Jordan at this point in the 90s. And he has 6 rings, and then he won 3 in a row with the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe in 2000, 2001, 2002. So he has 9 rings at this point. The most decorated coach in history, and besides Red Auerbach from the Celtics of the 60s. And look at him, 6 seconds to go. His team is down by 2 in a home game, and he's just sitting there. Other coaches, you do not see that. They jump around. They tell every player who to guard. They're like me with their hands. And this is very, very interesting. He told his team everything that he needs to tell them. Both him and his defensive coach, Tex Winter, they do nothing. They just sit there, composed, nerves of steel, watching, observing, and let's see what happens. So the Kings inbound the ball. And again, it's Omri Caspi is 6'8", so Lamar Odom is against him. He's trying to block his way to get the ball in, but finally they do. They pass it one more time. So the guy who passes it, actually, this person, he wants to pass it to this player who has a better chance of scoring the ball. That's why he passes him, because he wants him to get fouled, him to go to the line. So let's now go to the line real quick and see how he does. Let's look at his stats and what he did that same night. 4.8 to go, 4.8 seconds to go, 2 for the Sacramento Kings. Now, what does this mean? If he scores 1, they're up by 3. It means the Lakers have to shoot a 3 to get this to overtime. If he scores 2, the game is largely over because it's a 4-point differential with nothing to go. 79% from the line, which means he scores 8 out of every 10 shots that he takes, and tonight 2 of 2. Let's see what he does. And let's go back to nerves of steel in crunch time, in money time, in basketball and high performance sports, in investing. Takes the first one and it's out. Now there's more pressure on him because he has to score this. Otherwise, it's going to be a big problem. Coach Westphal has already lost 1 championship to Coach Jackson in '92 with Barkley versus and the Phoenix Suns versus the Chicago Bulls. Here's the second one, and it goes out. Immediately, they take the ball and they ask for a timeout. Why timeout? They want to get composure. They don't want to rush this. They have 4 seconds. Now, other coaches, they may tell their players, let's not take a timeout. You grab the rebound, you go the other way. The other team is not organized. I don't want to organize anything. I want you to take the last shot. That has happened in Laker history under Phil Jackson. That has happened in many other teams. In this particular situation, players call for a timeout, which obviously makes them very smart because they're aware that they have timeouts to go. That is another thing that we see a lot of times with losing composure. You grab the ball, you call for a timeout, but you have none left, and you waste all this time, and then you add confusion. So let's see what happens now. You have a minute to basically 60 seconds to get into your routine, into what you want to do, and let's jump right into the drill. So you have the person who takes it out of bounds, and you have the real threat, Kobe Bryant, obviously the black Mamba, the player that everyone knows the ball will come to eventually, and that this entire setup is made for him. So who do you want to make sure you never leave alone? Who do you want to make sure that if there's a screen, that there's a clear tactic in place? Do you switch? Do you not switch? What do you do? It's Kobe Bryant. So here you can see how the Kings, which are a mediocre team at this point, they may or may not make it to the playoffs, are trying to compete with a championship team, which is much more experienced and is ready for money time. So let's look at what happens. Look at their coaching staff. They're all up compared to the Lakers. They're all shouting things. They're all trying to make things happen at the last minute. Here's Pau Gasol. He gets the ball. Here's the screen. And won't you know it, the player that everyone was afraid of, the player that should have been double team, triple team, whatever you want to call it, the player that you should not get the ball into and should not be free to take a three-pointer, not a two-pointer, to take a three-pointer and win this game, is as clear as practice. And with 0.01 to go, he takes off the shot and goes in. It doesn't even touch the net. Let's look at that again, just so I want to show you how composed he was. Here you go. That's 0.1 to go. The ball is released from your hand. It's legitimate. It's at the end of regulation, and there you go. How was he left alone? Let's look at the scenario here that he was left alone. So you have the screen. Let's look at it. Okay, so here's the screen. And this Rodriguez gets his legs twisted. Kobe gets the ball free, takes the shot, wins. And this goes back. Let me stop the screen share. And this goes back to being composed. This goes back to having nerves of steel, which is what you need to have if you want to be in the public markets. Now, some people are blue chips. Kobe Bryant is a blue chip. Was a blue chip. Unfortunately, obviously everybody knows what happened on the 26th of January this year. But the idea is that you need to know that you're capable of making that shot, that you're capable of keeping your composure, that you have nerves of steel. Let me screen share a few of the notes for today that I've put together because I think they're important. So they call it money time for a reason. It's the time to make money. Yesterday, the 28th, we saw the NASDAQ go down by 3.5%. We thought the S&P 500 go by 3%. Why is that? Why did that happen? No matter what is the reason, it will fix itself out in the next few days, weeks, months, whatever it is. This kind of a one-day volatility or a few days of volatility because of uncertainty are always a buying opportunity as long as you don't need that money right away. If you're 64, you plan on having that entire nest egg that you've saved up out of the markets by 65, this may not be a buying opportunity for you. But for everyone else, when you see such a big day, you need to look at your watch lists and see what companies have fallen dramatically where they shouldn't have. There's nothing wrong with them, and just the computer trading algorithms have just shorted them or just liquidated them a lot, and they'll buy them back today. You'll see that. So they call it money time for a reason. I want you to think about that, because you need to be ready when you're down 2 points and there's one session to go. You need to make that decision and need to go all in. Confusion must be exploited. Could you imagine if Kobe Bryant was saying, hold on, this guy is falling on the floor, Rodriguez, let me wait until he comes to me so it will be fair, quote unquote. It will never be fair. There are circumstances in the markets. There are players that have knowledge advantage, experience advantage, composure advantage, emotional advantage, disciplinary advantage, budget advantage. You're not playing in a level playing field, and therefore you have to realize that you have to exploit your own advantages when you get them. And what are some of these advantages? Well, for one, you know right now that 1 week before the elections, the Federal Reserve is not going to act. It's not going to announce any major announcements, because that's going to intervene with the free markets right before elections, and they might be deemed as manipulating the elections. So right now, you know that if there's volatility, it's going to be a good chunk of volatility out there. Some players in the NBA are better than others, just like some investors are better than others. What are these investors doing right now? Know what they are doing, or know which are their top holdings. So when you look at a day like this and you say, this guy just bought a big chunk of this company a few weeks ago, this company is now lower than when he bought it. I did my own research on this. I'm ready to take a position. The market can't tell me how much this company is worth. I know what I think about this. We have some players in the NBA like Tim Duncan, like Kobe Bryant, like LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Shaq, obviously Michael Jordan. They're serial winners, serial championship winners. There are companies out there that are always in that once in a lifetime opportunity zone, because they're just great companies. And over time, every time that they are flattened out, weakened a little bit, it was a great opportunity to get in. Those are the type of companies that you want to hold. Those are the type of companies that make you rich for retirement. Not talking about the hype companies. I'm just talking about great companies. You look over time and they're beating the markets over a 10-year period, 15-year period, 20-year period. They're always better than the indices. And in the small cap world, there are some entrepreneurs that are just winners. So some entrepreneurs that they started one company, two companies, three companies, if they all succeed, or they're invested in one company, two companies, three companies, they've all succeeded. There is something there about them that they have a better judging skill of what can work and what doesn't. And you should follow these entrepreneurs along. Now I want to switch over, and I'm going to stop the share screen for a bit. I want to talk to you about Israel and what's going on over here in the last few months. So since coronavirus started, I've been here in Tel Aviv. Actually, for the last 2 years, we, myself, my wife, our daughter, who's now 4, but she was a year and a half when we started, and my wife's mother, we worked-cation. So we traveled around the world for 2 years, 25 countries, and I was running my businesses that way, and in my spare time, instead of being in one residence, I was being a tourist, and it was a lot of fun. We ended it when coronavirus basically happened. So February 1st, we started a rental agreement here in Tel Aviv, where my citizenship is, where I reside, and we've been here ever since. Who has been impacted here in Israel by the coronavirus, and what has been the environment overall? For one thing, politics didn't come into everyone's lives on a daily basis. So when you go about your business, you don't see politics as being a big part of your life. You're not tuning into politics every single day for hours and hours. But coronavirus has put politics in everyone's minds, because now you see how everything is political, how everything is an interest against interest. And you see that even something as healthcare centered as a pandemic has its political spheres. So, for example, in Israel, there are religious and secular Jews like myself that don't wear the yarmulke, they don't practice Judaism closely, they don't go to the synagogue, they don't pray in the synagogue, etc. And there's a big part to do. Those people are as impacted by what a rabbi says than by what a government says. So if a rabbi says, go and congregate, pray, that to some means more than the prime minister saying, no, you cannot pray, you have to keep your distance, or the health minister saying you keep your distance, you have to wear the mask, etc. So here, what we saw in the last few months is the friction between the religious and the secular religious, and this whole debate over obedience to government. And it's interesting, really interesting if you follow this along, because they went through a phase where they had a 30% positivity rates in their cities because they literally did not keep distance and whatnot. And then there was a period where everyone waited to see whether or not this positivity rate will become, ventilator rate, and then unfortunately death rate. It did not occur in large numbers. So many people recovered, and that was great data. For one thing, but it also created a lot of frustration with the secular religious who said, hey, we gave up so much. The entire city of Tel Aviv has been closed off. You can't leave the house, no school systems. These people did not follow the government orders, and there's nothing there. So an interesting dynamic going on right now between both parties. Obviously in the United States, not parties, but both segments of the population. Obviously in the United States, it's the same way. You travel between state to state and you see very different approaches to coronavirus. Let me screenshot again and just talk to you about some of the industries that have been really hurt here. So small business owners, just like in America, have been really hurt because the government cannot replace their income. And the big companies that like the giants, the Microsofts, the Intels, etc., they kept paying their employees during all this time. And actually, you got to work from home. Where you're a small business owner, you got really hurt. So tourism people from all over the world come to Israel because of the history, the holy tourist spots, and then obviously the vibes of Tel Aviv. So people go to Tiberias, where the Sea of Galilee is, where Jesus walked on the water and whatnot. Nazareth, where Christianity started. They go to Jerusalem. They go to Eilat, which is a city, a port city on the Red Sea. They come to Tel Aviv for the vibe, for the action. It's like a New York style city. And it's all dead. The summer, which is the peak season, was literally dead. So hotels, cab drivers, restaurants, events, tour operators, cities that rely on tourism, like the Tiberias, like Nazareth. The beaches were empty. Gas stations, obviously people don't leave the house that much. They're empty. Office buildings, parking lots, clubs, bars. This is about 20% of the population that have been badly hurt. Entertainers, comedians, actors, they've led a lot of these social protests because they have not been able to, do shows, theater, nothing. Obviously, cinemas are closed. So that's really interesting. And we shall see how this develops, because it in Israel, not many governments get to finish that 4-year term. If you look at our history, because of the way that the voting system works, the public does not cast a vote for it. There is something called a coalition or a parliament that has 120 members. If 61 or more have faith in the government, then the government can function. If less than 61 do, then there's a chance of the government toppling over, and that happens a lot because the parliament members can switch sides and can go from the coalition to the opposition. We can do another video on this if there's some comments on looking into the history of Israel, which I can gladly talk about. But in ending this video and talking about one thing that my family has been impacted by and is interesting dynamic is the school system. So we had the school system closed for kindergartens as well. And many parents have more than one child. We have one child, and we've been able to put a lot of focus into her and a lot of love and education, and give her everything that we can. A lot of families can't do that because maybe they don't have the flexibility in terms of their lifestyles, and maybe they have more than one child. It's very important at this time, now that she's back in kindergarten, to think about all the kids that are first graders to sixth graders, and what have they actually missed out on? What is school not giving them in the last few months that is important? So to me, it's the most important things are reading and writing and talking. Those to me are essential. We don't do enough talking in school. To me, if there was one day of just debates in school, persuasion, people talking with each other, that would be one of the best things. People are very shy. Kids are very shy. They grow up to be shy. They don't want to talk. They don't want to talk on a podcast like this. They're afraid to get exposed. And I think that's really important. Speak with your children. Get a conversation going. They need to learn from adults. Secondly, what I think is really important is to differentiate between the curriculum in school that is, whatever, and the curriculum that is important and essential for their grown-up life. So think about that. Think how you're spending time with your kids. What are you doing? Are you inside? Are you outside? Are you letting them play with other kids? How are you substituting the time that they are not in in the school system? And also think about nerves of steel, because the elections are just 5 days away. It could be very contested, no matter who wins. We could have a lot of weeks of uncertainty here. And I do not think that the Federal Reserve will do anything major during this time. And even if there's a stimulus package on the table, it will take a while to unravel. So real price discovery here. You're going to get to see with a lot of companies how much their stock is really worth in the highs of big money and institutional money, and have your watch list ready. So comment in the section below what you think. How is your country fared out? If you're not here, how's your state fared out? How is your relationship with your kids? Do you realize the importance of having nerves of steel so you can function in those very important areas where the markets are down 20 or 30%? And I've heard this a lot, that people stayed in cash because they thought, well, heck, there's going to be a bounce and then there's going to come down again. And it never happened. So think about that. Think and let me know what happened with your portfolio during that time. And thank you very much.